I never believed in the paranormal. Ghost stories? Just that, stories. Until that house. I was 28, divorced, burned out. All I wanted was silence and distance from everything. So when I found a cheap rental cabin tucked into the woods of rural Oregon, I didn't even question it. No neighbors, no cell reception, just me and quiet. The place looked abandoned from the outside. The paint was peeling, the windows clouded with dust, and there was a strange vine growing along the foundation that seemed to twitch slightly whenever the wind blew. But I chalked it up to nature and time. I moved in the first week of October. I brought only what I needed: clothes, a few books, my laptop, and a camera. I figured I'd use the time to read, write, maybe reconnect with myself. For the first few days, everything was just still. Not peaceful, hollow, the kind of stillness you notice when you realize something should be making a sound but isn't. No insects, no birds, no wind. The silence wasn't calm, it was unnatural, oppressive. The isolation grows. By the end of the first week, the tapping had started, always at 3:17 a.m., always 3 knocks, always from a different place. Sometimes the wall behind me, sometimes from inside the kitchen cabinets. Once, I swear, it came from under my bed. I started recording audio every night, trying to catch it. But no matter what device I used, phone, digital recorder, even an old camcorder, the tapping never showed up. The devices captured my breathing, the creak of the floorboards when I stood in fear, but not the sound that woke me. Sleep deprivation started to set in. My eyes burned during the day. I started hallucinating subtle movements, a shadow that would duck just out of view, a shape standing where there should be none. Then came the dreams. The dreams began. They started mild. At first, I dreamed of walking through the house and finding new rooms I hadn't seen before. Narrow, endless hallways, doors that opened into pitch black stairwells, bathrooms full of shattered mirrors. Then the dreams changed. I began dreaming about her. She would appear at the end of a hallway, swaying, not walking. Her head tilted downward. Her long, stringy black hair dripped with something. Not water. It was thicker, darker. Her gown was always soaked at the hem. In the dream, I couldn't move. I'd just stand frozen as she slowly raised her head, revealing no eyes. Just sunken sockets, leaking blackness like smoke. She would open her mouth, but instead of a scream, I'd hear the tapping again. Louder, inside my skull. Tap, tap, tap. Then I'd wake up, drenched in sweat, and the tapping would be real, the mirror incident. The worst moment, the first one that truly made me question reality, happened on my 11th night. I was brushing my teeth, trying to keep some routine alive. I'd grown used to avoiding the mirror, but that night I felt defiant, tired of being afraid. So I looked, and I saw her, not behind me in the mirror, standing directly beside me. But I couldn't feel her. I turned my head. She wasn't there. Yet in the reflection, she leaned close to my face, her mouth inches from my ear. I couldn't hear her voice, but the lights flickered, and blood started trickling from my nose. The image vanished, but the sensation stayed, cold breath on my cheek. After that, I covered every mirror in the house with blankets, even the screen of my laptop. Anything that could reflect was hidden. Stranger signs. I started finding wet footprints around the house. Small, barefoot prints, like someone had been walking in from a lake. They led from the bathroom to my bed, always during the night. One morning, I found a small paper hospital wristband sitting on my nightstand. The name was faded. The date read, October 12th, this 1963. I hadn't seen it before. I hadn't brought it with me. My food began to rot within hours. Mold covered the bread by evening, milk soured by the next day. Even water began to smell of rust and something else, like formaldehyde. And then I found the crawl space. The crawl space. I hadn't noticed it before. It was under a loose floorboard in the back room I barely used. I pulled it open and climbed down with a flashlight. The space was cramped, but it stretched deep under the house, farther than it should have. The walls were covered in old newspaper clippings, yellowed, torn, but all pinned carefully. I started reading them. They were obituaries, dozens of them, each one for a woman, aged 20 to 40. All had died in isolation, drowned, committed suicide, disappeared from mental hospitals. Some names were scratched out violently. Others had dates that didn't make sense. One obituary listed the date of death as 2 weeks in the future. At the very end of the crawl space, written in red on the concrete wall, were these words: "She collects the lonely." The final night, the house felt different. I locked every door, closed every window, turned off all lights. I curled up on the couch, holding a flashlight and knife, both shaking in my hands. At 3:17 a.m., the lights flickered. The air turned thick, like breathing underwater. I couldn't move. And then, from the ceiling above me, I heard a dragging sound, like something crawling across the beams. Then, tap, tap, tap. I looked up. She was there, crawling on the ceiling, head turned completely upside down, mouth open, black smoke pouring out like ink underwater. Her hands bent backward, clawing into the wood. She dropped down. I passed out before I could scream. Aftermath. I woke up on the front lawn. My nose was bleeding. My fingernails were cracked. My shirt was soaked. Not with water, but muck. Like I'd been pulled through a swamp. The front door was wide open. Every mirror in the house was shattered. My phone had 38 missed calls from unknown numbers, all at 3:17 a.m. I left that day, hitchhiked to town, burned my clothes. I told myself it was a psychotic break. Stress, isolation, sleep deprivation. But every now and then, when I'm alone, even in a crowded place, I feel that tapping start in my skull again. Tap, tap, tap. And I remember the writing in the crawl space: "She collects the lonely." And for a moment, I feel her watching me again. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to our channel, Mr. Nightmare Nexus. Leave a comment to share your thoughts, and don't forget to like and share the video with your friends. Your support means the world to us and helps keep the nightmares coming. I've never gone back to that farmhouse. Not once. But even now, every detail of that week is burned into my memory like a scar I can't erase. After I left that morning, no bags, no goodbyes, I stayed in a motel 2 towns over. Just needed a place with people, lights, noise. I remember sitting on that stiff motel bed trying to convince myself it was over, that maybe it really was all in my head. But then I reached into my coat pocket and found something I know I hadn't put there. A small, wet clump of black hair tied with twine. That night in the motel, I didn't sleep either. Around 1:45 a.m., the fire alarm in my room started going off, but there was no smoke, nothing burning. I disconnected it, and as I turned back toward the bed, I saw something chilling. On the mirror, written in fog, even though the room was freezing cold, were the words, "You left me." I rushed out into the hallway, heart racing. The clerk at the front desk swore I was the only guest on that floor. After that night, I stopped staying in one place too long. I moved apartments 3 times in a year. I deleted all photos I had of that farmhouse. I blocked my uncle's number. I told him I lost my phone, but really I just didn't want to talk about what happened. Not to anyone. I was afraid saying it out loud would make it real again, but it didn't help, because something followed me. In my new apartment, 3rd floor, modern building, bright white walls, I started hearing things again. Not footsteps. This time it was knocking. Not on my door, on the inside of my closet. 3 soft knocks, always at the same time, 2:14 a.m., and always followed by silence. The first few nights I stayed frozen in bed, trying not to breathe, but one night I couldn't take it anymore. I opened the closet. Nothing was there. No signs of anything unusual, except one thing. A thin layer of pond water pooled across the floor of the closet. No explanation, no leak, just still, dark water that smelled faintly of algae and rot. I cleaned it up. The next night, it was back again. And this time there were footprints in it, bare feet, small and facing toward me. I tried therapy. I tried priests. I tried pretending it wasn't real. Nothing worked. A medium once visited my apartment and walked right out before even sitting down. She told me, "There's something here, but it's not of here." She said the energy wasn't just of a ghost, but of something incomplete, like a broken loop. A spirit who hadn't moved on, not because it couldn't, but because it didn't want to. The worst night came 3 months later. I had stayed awake, trying to outlast the usual 2:14 knocking. But at 2:10, my bedroom light started flickering. Then the knocking came, not from the closet this time, but from underneath my bed. I froze. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And then slowly I felt it. A hand, reaching up from the floor, pressing softly against the mattress below me, rising as if something was trying to push through. I jumped up, ran to the hallway, and locked myself in the bathroom. For hours, I slept in my car for the next 2 nights. Eventually, I left that city too. I live far out now. Mountains, woods, somewhere quiet, no neighbors, no mirrors. I don't keep clocks in the house. But even now, even this far away, I feel her. Not every night, but some nights. Especially when the wind stops blowing and the world goes still. Sometimes I hear a soft hum again. Sometimes the walls feel damp for no reason. And once, just once, I woke up to find the phrase scratched into my bedroom wall, clear as daylight: "You can't run from the lonely." I don't know who she is. I don't know what she is. But she chooses those who are alone, truly alone. And once she finds them, she never really leaves. So now I keep the lights on. I talk to people more. I don't stay in one place too long. And I never ever look in the mirror after midnight, because that's when she watches back. It's strange how quickly the mind tries to make sense of the impossible. After I moved out, I kept telling myself it was stress, sleep paralysis, or some form of hallucination, anything but what it really felt like. But the truth is, I wasn't imagining it. Something was there, and it wasn't done with me. A week after I left the house, I was staying at a friend's apartment temporarily. One night, I woke up gasping, not because of a nightmare, but because I heard that same sound again. 3 slow knocks. Only this time they were coming from inside the closet of my friend's spare room. I froze. I hadn't even unpacked my bags. There was no reason for the closet door to creak open on its own, but it did. Slowly, inch by inch, nothing came out. I turned on every light in the room and didn't sleep until morning. The next day, I told my friend I had to leave. He didn't ask why. Maybe he sensed it too. I rented a motel room far outside the city, wanting to disappear completely for a while. The staff barely noticed me. I liked that. I thought maybe if I moved far enough away, it couldn't find me. But one night, the manager called my room around 2 a.m. in a low, tired voice. He said, "Sir, could you please stop walking back and forth above room 12? Guests are complaining." I was in room 12, and it was a 1-story building. There was no room above. That night I saw her, not clearly, just a glimpse. I woke up to the sound of a child humming, soft, tuneless, echoing from the corner of the dark room. My eyes adjusted slowly. There was someone crouched in the corner, pale, motionless, long arms pressed against the wall, her head tilted unnaturally to one side. She wasn't breathing. She was watching. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat was locked. I just pulled the blanket over my face like a child, and when I looked again, she was gone. But the humming continued for hours. I checked out the next day and tried to return to normal life. I moved into an apartment complex with thick walls and neighbors on all sides. I figured safety in numbers might help. I even tried therapy. Though how do you tell someone you're being followed by a thing that lives in your ceiling and watches you sleep? The therapist listened quietly. She asked if I had a name for what I saw. I told her I didn't, but maybe she did. She didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, "Some things don't need names. They just need a place to belong." That word haunted me. Belong. It's been almost a year now. I keep moving, never staying in one place too long. But I've accepted something. No matter where I go, she eventually finds me. Sometimes I see her in reflections that don't match my movements. Sometimes I wake up with long strands of hair on my pillow that aren't mine. And every time the clock hits 3:17 a.m., I brace myself. I know I'll hear it. Knock, knock, knock. And I don't think she wants to hurt me. I think she wants to come inside. Not the house, not the room. Me. I've always had this one rule growing up: never let my feet hang off the bed. Silly, right? But as a kid, I believed monsters lived under the bed. Not the cartoonish, sharp-toothed creatures you see in movies. No, something worse. Something you couldn't see. You could only feel it. I remember one night when I was around 8 years old. I had woken up thirsty and leaned down to grab the water bottle beside the bed. That's when I saw fingers. Thin, pale fingers slowly withdrawing back into the darkness. I screamed. My parents rushed in. They turned on the lights and checked under the bed. There was nothing there. They said it was a dream, but I know what I saw. I still know. Years passed. I moved out, graduated, got a job, and eventually rented my own apartment. It was old, creaky, and a bit too quiet, but cheap and near work. And for a while, things were normal. Until one night, I dropped my phone under the bed. It should have been simple. Just kneel, reach, grab. But the moment my hand disappeared beneath the mattress, I froze. I couldn't explain why. It was like that childhood fear had never left me. My breath got shallow. My skin broke into goosebumps, and suddenly I felt it again. Not a touch, not a sound, just presence. A watching, waiting presence. I jerked my hand back, heart racing. After a few deep breaths, I laughed it off and used a broom to drag my phone out. But that night marked the beginning of something. Something that would slowly unravel my sanity. The first few nights after that were filled with unease. Shadows seemed longer than they should be. The hallway light flickered, even though I changed the bulb. My cat, Milo, began acting strange, hissing at the bedroom door or standing still, staring under the bed with wide, terrified eyes. I thought maybe he sensed a rat or some pest. Then Milo disappeared. I came home from work one evening and called for him. No sound, no food touched. I searched every corner, every cabinet, every drawer. I even checked the tiny crawl space in the kitchen. Nothing. That night I heard scratching from under the bed. I didn't sleep. The next morning I found Milo's collar, torn and muddy, sitting in the middle of my bedroom floor. My knees buckled. The bed, it had muddy fingerprints on the lower sheet, like something had pulled itself up and then vanished. Still, I tried to deny it. I told myself someone was playing a sick prank. I installed a camera facing my bed. The footage was mostly uneventful for the first few hours, until 2:33 a.m. The blanket began to shift, even though I was perfectly still. Then, from under the bed, a pale, bony hand reached out, brushing along my leg. My body didn't move, not even to react. I was paralyzed in sleep, but wide awake. Then the camera shut off. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. I deleted the footage. I didn't want to see more. Over the next few days, things escalated. I'd wake up with scratches down my legs, bruises on my ankles. Sometimes I'd hear whispering coming from inside the walls, words I couldn't understand, like another language. One night, I had a dream. At least, I hope it was a dream. I was standing in the hallway outside my bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, I could see the silhouette of something long and hunched crawling out from beneath the bed. It had no face, just an endless mouth, wide open, with hundreds of teeth. Its skin was stretched too tightly across its bones, and its fingers dragged across the floor, leaving trails of blood behind. It looked up at me. "You should have never looked for me." I woke up screaming. There was blood on my sheets. Not a lot, just a smear. But it was enough. I packed a bag and left the apartment that morning. Stayed at a friend's place for a few days. When I returned to check the apartment, I found something waiting for me. Under the bed, which I had sworn never to check again, was a note. Not typed, not printed, handwritten in my own handwriting. "You can leave the bed, but I won't leave you." That night, I stayed at a hotel. But the next morning, I found muddy footprints in the hallway, leading to my hotel bed. I've been trying to stay awake for days now. I drink coffee, I blast music, I do push-ups. But I'm only human. I doze off, even for seconds. And when I do, I hear it again. The breathing, the whispers, the scratching. It's following me. Not just the bed, not just the apartment, me. Last night, I turned on the lights after hearing a soft thump.